Okay, fantastic. So we are now recording this session. Welcome to today's Wednesday webinar, 22nd of November, 2023. And today we are focusing on 5 big CQC updates. CQC seem to have a habit of ruining my weekend by emailing me on a Friday evening with a whole range of updates, as I'm sure they've done for you too. So I spent most of my weekend kind of going through much of this, that's how boring my life is. But I've kind of distilled it into 5 of the main updates. As we'll see as we go through it, there may be some opportunities for some further webinars kind of moving down the road next few weeks, where I'll go into some of this in a bit more detail. But I just wanted to give a big kind of overview and highlight some of the core parts. As I always say, I do not have any secret CQC information. I'm not catching up with them in side alleys and giving them little wads of cash in exchange for information. This is all kind of publicly available. Easiest way to find much of this information, go to cqc.org.uk/assessment. There is now a new part on that front page called How We Will Roll Out Our New Assessments. Click on that, and a good chunk of this information is incorporated in that page as well, and the follow-up pages that you can click through from it. So, quick recap. There's been a slight tweak of the date confirmation. This isn't one of my 5. This is just a quick recap before we get into the 5. The staged regional rollout is going ahead as planned. We've got the South region going live on the 5th of December. Yesterday, 14 magical services started as kind of a part of a pilot program. Don't panic. If you aren't one of those 14, you haven't missed an email. People had to volunteer to be in that 14 and CQC made a choice. So don't worry, you're not going to be caught out by mistake or magically called up. So there are 14 services that are currently kind of going through the kind of the first wave process. And from the 5th of December, so in a few weeks' time, the whole of the South, as well as providers in Bedford, Luton and the Milton Keynes ICS, will be under the new framework. London East, 8th of January. Previously, we've been given some information around the 9th of January, but that was Tuesday. So it's the 8th of January, Monday, the 8th of January. The London and East region will be under the new framework. And then the North and the Midlands regions will be live from the 6th of February. And again, similar to the South, there'll be a small number of providers that will be kind of selected and chosen and given much notice, who will start piloting it in the North and Midlands areas on the 23rd of January. So it's happening, it's coming, and it's landing quickly. There's a few updates in kind of how they're planning on utilising the framework, how it's going to work out, how this rollout is going to happen. And that's what we're covering in today's session. We'll start with the first one. Evidence collection. We all know that there's going to be a push towards both kind of remote collection of information, remote collection of feedback, of all sorts of evidence categories, and observation is now only one of 5 evidence categories. So whilst at the present kind of a process, current approach, observation is the main thing. You have an observation. Now observation is one of just 5 of the evidence categories. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go and have a look on my previous kind of videos, and it will kind of explain this all a little bit more. But we've got a little bit more information around both the on-site and the off-site evidence collection processes. This was really interesting. CQC are obviously trying to make it clear that they're not binning the inspections. On-site activity remains really important. We expect to use our time visiting services in a more targeted way. So when they do observations, they're going to be based on specific quality statements. You can see that with the mapping between the quality statements and the evidence categories. Not every quality statement has observation as one of their evidences. But they've given a bit more information about when they might choose to turn up. When issues with poor or closed cultures, where it's the best way of gathering people's experiences, or concerns around transparency and evidence availability. Put simply, they're going to turn up if they think you're hiding things, or if they can't really find out that much about people's experiences. So that's people receiving care, family members. So basically, if you haven't got people's experience evidence in place, you've got more of a chance of an in-person visit, because that's actually one of the reasons they might come to visit in person, be to get at that people's experience, alongside concerns around transparency and fears around closed cultures. When they come along, it will be to observe care and the care environment, speak to people using the services, speak to staff and leaders. You can see again that if you have really good feedback evidence processes, you may kind of be able to stand back from some of those in-person observations. Off-site activity. Now, this is where it's become a bit interesting. We've heard lots of information about this portal, and I believe the portal is still coming, but look at this little cheeky half a sentence. Annual PIR using existing collection methods, so not the portal for now. The current methods for PIR will remain. Online reviews of clinical records. Request evidence directly from providers, most likely by email. Surprise. We were expecting kind of the portal to be this all singing, all dancing thing. I think it's on its way, it's coming, but initially it's probably going to be through email that a lot of these evidences are going to be shared. So again, something to bear in mind, the portal may not be fully ready and functioning. According to CQC stating here, they will probably be requesting evidence by email, for now. For now, providers don't need to submit evidence proactively. We will ask you for anything we need. So it's not a case of you sending them everything under the sun. They will contact you. We've talked about the different evidence requests, elsewhere. In addition to specific requests from evidence providers, we will continue to carry out interviews with staff and workers in services and with service leaders. We may do this online. Do not underestimate what they're saying here about speaking to staff, speaking to residents, speaking to family. I was delivering some training last week and I spoke with a manager who was asked to provide phone numbers of their staff, which they duly did. CQC called one of their staff members on a Saturday and spoke to them for 45 minutes on a Saturday about the learning culture of the service and about the training that person had received. I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not going to make any comment on that. But just think through what that kind of seems to signify in terms of a 45-minute phone call on a Saturday to a staff member about things like learning culture and the training that person has received. You can see this focus on staff feedback, as well as its feedback from people receiving care and families, is really significant. And CQC are already trialing it. They're already having an attempt at doing that. They're already building it into their current processes. First scores, right. So that's kind of a bit of the broad information around evidence collections, a bit more clarification around what on-site and off-site is. More importantly, there's been some clarification about the use of email, and I've got some anecdotal evidence I've just shared around the amount of feedback they're now collecting. First scores. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because one of the big questions has been, how on earth are CQC going to measure 34 quality statements, 4 to 5 evidence categories, hundreds, thousands of services across the country? How are we going to do that? How can we move as one with this framework? Are they going to just get kind of hundreds of thousands of inspectors and just inspect everything in the day? How on earth are we going to move forward? Well, they've come up with an approach. So for services with an existing rating, all evidence categories required by a quality statement will be collected at once. Now, this is not what I mean here is not they're going to do the whole of the framework at once. What they will do is they will select a couple of quality statements to look at for you, and they will collect all of the evidence within that quality statement in that one hit. So it might be, all right, we've got these 3 quality statements we want to look at, freedom to speak up, medicines optimization, and learning culture, for example. And they will look at all of the evidence categories that come under each of those. So this idea that they'll pick one evidence category for one quality statement, another evidence category for another quality statement, it looks like they're actually going to look at quality statements as a whole and all of the evidence categories that sit under them. It said here, for each of the quality statements we look at, we will collect evidence and score all of the relevant evidence categories. This means the scores for those quality statements will be entirely based on our new assessments. They'll pick some quality statements and they'll look at all of the evidence categories across some of those quality statements. But what about the other ones? Well, this is where it gets interesting. So let's say they've picked those 3, freedom to speak up, medicines optimization, and learning culture. Well, what about all the other 33 quality statements? Well, what they're going to do is they're going to take your current scores and they're going to superimpose them onto the quality statements. So, for example, if you have an outstanding in SAFE, then all the quality statements in SAFE are going to have a score of 4. If you've got a good in, well-led, all of the quality statements in well-led are going to be a 3, and so on and so forth. So they're taking your old key question ratings, safe, effective, caring, responsive, well-led, and they're transposing that score onto all of the quality statements in each of that key question. I hope that makes sense. I'll be showing you a visual of that in a moment. There are some tweaks because there are a couple of quality statements that are in one key question in the old framework and they're in a new key question in the new framework. So workforce wellbeing enablement, even though that is now in caring, they're going to apply your old well-led score because that was where it was in the previous framework. Similarly, care provision, integration and continuity, which is currently, I believe, in responsive, was previously in well-led. So again, it's going to take your well-led rating. Providing information is again in responsive, but used to be under effective. So they're going to take your current effective rating and give it that score. You're not going to get a score for environmental sustainability, as it's not something that you've been expected to look at so far. Let me show you what it looks like visually. So here's a service, right? Here's a service under the current framework. This is what they've got. They've got a safe, good, effective RI, caring, good, responsive, good, well-led, outstanding. Bit of a strange mix of scores, I'm sure you'll recognize, but you'll see why I did it in the next example. So we've got safe, good, effective RI, caring, good, responsive, good, well-led is outstanding. This is what it does now to the quality statement scores. Ta-da! So safe is good. So all of the safe quality statements have a score of 3. 3 is the good score. Effective, they've got RI. So all of their effective quality statements are a 2, because that's the score for RI. 2 for RI, 1 for inadequate. Caring, the first 4 are all 3, because you can see caring is good. However, as we mentioned, those little tweaks, because workforce wellbeing enablement used to be in well-led, they're taking your well-led score, and your well-led score was an outstanding. So you actually got a little Brucey bonus there. You got a 4 for workforce wellbeing enablement, because that one used to be under well-led. So they're taking your old well-led score, even though it's now under caring. Similarly, for responsive, you can see most of them are 3s, except for care provision, integration and continuity, which used to be under well-led, is now under responsive. So they're taking your old well-led score, which in this example is an outstanding. And similarly, providing information, which used to be an effective, but is now in responsive. They're taking your old, in this case, requires improvement score. Hopefully that makes sense. Then well-led, you can see there's 4s all across the board, because you've got a well-led, you've got 4 points for that. But environmental sustainability, there isn't a score because they haven't assessed you on it. And I'll give you 10 seconds, just kind of compute what I've been saying here, because I know it's a lot of numbers. Long story short, they are taking your current key question ratings, and they are using those to give you the score. 4 for outstanding, 3 for good, 2 for requires improvement, 1 for inadequate. Where the three quality statements where they have moved out of one key question into another, they're taking the old key question score that it was originally scored with, because they haven't looked at it yet. Now, it might be they come and look at it, and then obviously they score it differently, because that's what they're collecting evidence for. Hopefully this gives you an initial idea of what your service can be scored as. You can now score your service. You can sit there with an Excel sheet, or with a calculator, and you can start adding up your scores. You can start putting them in and working out what your service rating currently under the new framework is, because they're using your old scores. Once they start coming and asking for new evidences and new evidences against these quality statements, those scores will then start to change. And they're very open in their latest part where they're talking about quality statements. They talk very openly about the fact that ratings for services would change as a result of this process. There's no kind of, we'll try and make sure service ratings don't change. No, they're expecting that as evidence and quality statement ratings and scores change, so will the final rating of your service. If you're looking at this going, what on earth is he talking about? Again, go back on to our YouTube channel. We've got a video where we talk through the scoring process. Again, it's something that we cover in our Get CQC Ready training as well. It's a massive shift under the new framework in terms of scoring evidences, which then creates scores for quality statements, which then create scores for your key questions, safe, effective, caring, responsive, well-led, which then create your final rating as a service. And as you can see here, your current ratings for safe, effective, caring, responsive, and well-led are being used to automatically generate your scores against each of the quality statements. I hope that has made sense. If not, feel free to ping me emails. Happy to do some more on that, talking some more detail. But I'm going to skip over because we've got some more things to discuss. What if you haven't been inspected at all? What if you're a brand new care home? What if you haven't got anything? There's no safe score. There's none of this safe, effective, caring, responsive, well-led ratings. You are a brand new, yet to be inspected service. Brace yourselves. This is again directly from the CQC website. We will not apply initial scores. There are no previous findings to base them on, so obviously they haven't got anything to go on. For these services, breathe in everyone, we will normally collect evidence for all the quality statements within the first year. So if you are a brand new service, or you're about to register a new service, or you're about to turn 2 of your together services into 2 separate services, if in some way a service that hasn't got any previous ratings is either in your portfolio or about to be in your portfolio, then you have to prepare for a busy year ahead, because their intention is to collect evidence for all the quality assessments within the first year for any services that haven't yet been inspected. Services that have been inspected that already do have ratings, they're going to be using this process to generate your initial scores, and then they'll be collecting evidence, and those scores will change as they find out new things. If you're a brand new service, they've got nothing to go on. Their aim is to collect all the evidences for all the quality statements within that first year. Give us a call if you need some help with feedback, as that is 3 out of your 5 or 3 out of your 4 evidence categories. That's another chat for another day. Priority quality statements. So this was something that was raised in the August CQC webinar, and then it kind of disappeared, and it was raised kind of as little phrases, but it was never really outlined as to what it is. Well, we still haven't got exactly what they are, but we've got a process. So for rollout, we'll be using a preliminary set of priorities for each type of service. They haven't stated what they are yet. Hopefully in the coming few days or week, we'll find out what the priorities are. They're going to be organized by service. So different services are going to have different requirements in terms of what those priorities are going to be. But from July 24, so the planning between now and June to kind of be a learning discovery period. Then from July, they're going to set specifically the priority quality statements for each service. They'll assess them for each assessment. So if they're going to assess you, they will include these priority quality statements. This is moving on for kind of July 24. For now, they've got some general priorities. From July 24, they'll have very specific priority quality statements, which they will assess during any assessment, and they're going to review them on an annual basis. And this is something that I raised. I don't know if any of you remember, there was a time several years ago when CQC had a big push on like oral healthcare, brushing your teeth and so on and so forth. It almost seems there's an element of that with some of these quality statements. There's going to be kind of like potentially each year a review, and perhaps a different set of quality statements are going to become the priority quality statements. We should know more about what those priorities are soon. As soon as we know, obviously we'll be sharing them with you all, and we'll be happy to share information however we can. The kind of main formalization of these are the priority quality statements for each type. Each assessment is going to definitely focus on these quality statements. That's not going to come into place until around or soon after July 24, and then they will be reviewed annually. Okay, I think we're doing okay for time. Factual accuracy check. This was something that people were quite disgruntled about when they did their when CQC did their October webinar, because they didn't say that much about it. Well, they've released a lot more information around how the factual accuracy check process is going to work. Just in case you're unsure kind of what we're talking about here, the factual accuracy process allows you as the provider to tell CQC if information is factually incorrect, and this is really important, where evidence in the report may be incomplete. Bear in mind, now that they're focusing much more on sending information through digitally, you've got much more space to offer up more evidence to demonstrate and perhaps to argue your case. How's it going to work? Well, the CQC will send an email to the appropriate registered person. This will include a copy of the draft report and a link to download a form where you provide that response. If you go on the CQC website, you can actually find that form and see what it's going to look like. Not going to lie, it's a big old form, but if it enables you to question, challenge, check and report inaccuracies in your report, it's going to be worth doing. Notice here it's going to be sent to the registered person. So if you're part of a mega care group that has, huge amounts of quality teams and so on and so forth, you may wish to ensure that they have mechanisms to access that report also, because it might be that you as the registered person don't want to, quote unquote, fight this fight on your own. So what can you correct? So let's say you've received a report, you're looking through it, you're going, don't think so. Well, obviously, typographical errors, numerical errors, incorrect job titles, that sort of things. Anything that's just factually incorrect, typos, etc. Obviously, you can correct those. Section B, information that's contributes to a judgment, so perhaps that rating of 1, 2, 3, or 4, but which you believe is factually inaccurate. So if you think they've said something that is categorically incorrect, you can challenge that and send through evidence to show that that fact that they've written is incorrect. Section C is where it becomes more interesting. Additional information or information that was omitted, which you think you may have further examples of exemplary practice that demonstrate real benefits for people using your service, which may support a rating of outstanding rather than good. This is where the shift to digital approaches actually becomes really helpful, because as part of this factual accuracy check, you've got a lot more capacity because the CQC now have this assessor role and so on and so forth. There's a lot more capacity within CQC for you to send them more evidence digitally. In the past, CQC did write a report, and who's going to receive all of your emails with your extra evidence? Who does that? When? What? It's been a bit hit and miss. Now, because of the assessor role and the new setup of how reporting is working, actually there's a lot more capacity for you to send more information, send more digital information, and therefore hopefully either nudge things from good to outstanding, or maybe nudge things from RI to good. You say, look, I know that we sent this and this and this through, and I know you observed and you saw this, but we've actually got all these other evidences that we've collated over the last few days that we also want to send through. Notice the timescale. This is not an open-ended process. Once you've received the email with the draft report, the register manager will receive an email with the draft report and the forms that they can fill in if they wish to counter it or raise inaccuracies. You have 10 working days from the date of the email to submit the form with your comments. So you have a 10-day period. It doesn't say, so it's 10 working days. So really 2 working weeks, if you think of it without the weekend. You have 10 working days from the date of the email to submit the form with your comments. So again, we've talked in the past about getting processes in place so that your wider management team, quality teams, etc., can be part of this process. You need to ensure that there are processes in place so that when you get that report, if there are other people in your group that you feel should be part of that factual accuracy process, that they can see it and they can see it quickly, because you've only got a 10-day countdown. 10 working days, so kind of 2 working weeks, as it were, to get that worked out and amended. Okay, last point, report publishing. Now, CQC seem to have 2 slightly opposing things written on their website at the moment, partially because the old message hasn't been removed. So this is what previously was said. We will initially only publish the ratings for providers, but we intend to publish the scores in the future. So this is something that's still on the CQC website on certain older pages, and it was a belief really that services will just publish the ratings, so the key question ratings and the final rating of the service. That is very similar to what we have, and so all those scores that come underneath it, all the quality statement scores, that all of that would be published. However, in the latest update, even though this sentence still seems to exist on some of the older pages, they've given a lot more information around what will be published. So first of all, the idea of, you find your home, you click on the PDF, they're not doing it like that. Under the new framework, the information is going to be published directly on the website rather than as a PDF file. Their reasoning, they explain, is so that people can read it on their phones, they can read it on their tablets, they can read it on their laptops. It reduces some of the accessibility issues around having a PDF. So that's the first thing, is you're not going to have a PDF document. Everything's going to be published on the website. Exactly what that's going to look like, we'll find out soon, hopefully. Well, we will, because they're going to be rating people soon. But what's also interesting is, as it being on the website rather than as a PDF, they're giving a lot more information around what they're going to publish. And it seems to come against what they previously said about only publishing the ratings for providers and not the scores. Because look what they've said they're publishing. Overall rating for the service, so whether you're good, whether you're outstanding, RI, etc. Summary of our current view of the service written by the assessment team. So one of their assessment team will write an overview, probably maybe a few sentences or a paragraph. Summary of people's experiences of the service. So they're going to write a specific bit about the people's experiences evidence that they've found. Again, really highlighting that as a central theme. They're going to have, that first thing people are going to see is going to be whether your home is outstanding, good, RI, inadequate. A little paragraph from CQC about the home, and a little paragraph about the experiences according to residents and families. Then they're going to also publish the key questions and the ratings and the scores. So bear in mind, the aggregated score system means you're going to get a percentage or a score out of 100 for each of those key questions. So safe, effective, caring, responsive, well led. It's not going to be the word good. It's going to be a number. It's going to be a percentage based on the aggregated scoring of the evidence categories. Again, if you have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about, do check out on the YouTube channel. And we do cover this a lot in our training day as well. So they're going to have the rating and the score out of 100 for each of the key questions. They're also going to have a summary of the findings. And then, which is also interesting in view of what they previously said, looks like they're going to publish the quality statements as well, and the quality statement scores, the score for each quality statement. So remember what I showed a few pages ago with all those 3s and 2s and 1s and all that? Looks like they're going to be publishing that too, with a score, an explanation of what the score means. So basically kind of that 4 is outstanding, that 3 is good, 2 is requires improvement, etc. And a summary of the key findings for each evidence category. So they're going to go through what the people's experience evidence seemed to show, what the observation, if there was one, showed, what the processes showed, feedback from staff and leaders showed, feedback from partners showed. So this is a bit of a shift because they previously said we'll only publish the ratings for providers, intend to publish scores in the future. Now they're saying here's all the stuff we're going to publish, and look, it includes the scores. Whether that's something they're going to do slowly, whether that's something they're going to do straight away, whether it's, to be really blunt, because they've come up with this point around using the old scores, that might be why they're more confident sharing scores now, because they have a mechanism to show everyone's score from very early on. Doesn't mean it's going to be published straight away. It looks like they're going to be publishing the entirety of the scores for each service once they've gathered some quality statements from you. So they're not going to kind of on day one switch on, take your old ratings and apply them. They'll collect some new evidence against a couple of quality statements, and at that point they'll publish what they've got from that process and the other scores that they can bring over from your previous reports. So it seems like there's going to be a lot more published than we had initially been told and initially expected. And obviously that's important for you as services in terms of ensuring that what's publicly facing is fair and accurate. There's also, there's also some work to do around helping people understand what this scoring process is. This might be something I'll do another webinar on when I'll look at there's been some new rules published around what you have to publish, what needs to be displayed, and so on and so forth. Of course, if you are confused by all of this, we do have our YouTube channel. If you just type into YouTube Care Research UK, you should find us. You can find a load of our videos on there. We do have our Get CQC Ready training. We've now trained a couple of hundred people through it, which is pretty exciting. We are now taking bookings in January. If you feel that your staff, your managers, your team, there's no limit on numbers, would benefit from kind of a day to just get the framework sorted in their heads, get things planned, do get in touch. They're done in person or online. We also, as Care Research, we do a lot of work supporting people with feedback evidence. As I said before, 3 out of 5 if you're residential, 3 out of 4 if you're domiciliary, of your evidence categories are feedback related. We can take that headache from you and we can help you do it really well. Well, we will do it really well on your behalf. That's the end of the session. Please email, please get in contact. I do hope it's made sense. I know we've kind of zipped through a lot. We'll probably do some further webinars to go into greater detail on certain things. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop the recording, and that means I can also then unmute people if anyone wants to speak or say anything. Okay, the recording has now stopped. Thank you very much.